Whether you're picking and grinning or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambler. Turn it up. Have you heard the new Charlie Crockett album?
I have not.
Okay, well, you got to go listen to that one. So we'll just start out with a Pickin the Grinnin right now, because $10 Cowboy came out as we record this. It came out just a few days ago, and I went down to the record store here in the old Louisville, and they had a big old Charlie Crockett poster in the window, and I took a picture of me outside with the album in front of the album that was bigger than me.
I saw that.
Yeah. So $10 Cowboy's out, and actually somebody on one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of was posted about it, and I kind of chimed in and said something along these lines, which it was much more poetic when I had time to, edit what I was writing. But I think that Charlie Crockett, and he's been doing this for 15, 20 years. He seems to be blowing up to a lot of people now, but it's like one of those 15-year overnight success stories, because he's got 5 or 6 albums, and he's been honing his craft for a while. But he seems to have, with this album and probably the one right before, he has kind of turned the corner on having a very unique sound from a production standpoint. And his songs, I think I pointed out in the Facebook group that I posted this on, they're not like, he doesn't have a lot of like flashy, fast songs. And he doesn't have a lot of slow, syrupy, drippy songs. They're just right in his wheelhouse of good, comfortable cowboy country music, good guitars, good steel guitar, good rhythm. And his songs are very simple, very plain, but very poetic. And I honestly feel like this album is going to elevate him to places he's not yet been, because he does seem like he's blowing up, but it's because he's fine-tuned that sound, and he's done something pretty damn good with this album. I love every cut on it. I mean, there's one song that maybe I wouldn't necessarily put on my playlist. The rest of them are all going on there. It's really, really that good.
All right, I'll have to give it a listen.
So $10 Cowboy, Charlie Crockett, it's out there, and you should go get it. And I also love the fact that his marketing and promotions people have zeroed in on like a good brand for him. Like everything looks and feels the same. He's got that sort of turquoisey light blue with the orange font and stuff. He's very, 70s cowboy-ish look. And it's working for him. So Charlie.
When you said the orange font, that's exactly what I thought. I was going to say, yes, very 70s.
Yes, very, very 70s. And so we'll start and end. I'll give you a little preview here, a little sneak. We'll start and end this show here today with little 70s country. So stick around for the conclusion of that. Welcome to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank.
And he's Falls.
And we're rambling through the stories behind the music we love.
And today on the show, we talked to singer and songwriter Jessie Lynn Madera. Her latest album, Speed of Sound, is out now, produced by Dan Navarro of Lowen and Navarro fame, plus Grammy winners Jim Scott and Ryan Hadlock. So she's got a single that features Navarro called Last Call, and it's starting to turn some heads in the Americana space. So we caught up with her a couple of weeks back, and we're going to share it with y'all today.
Yeah, she is. She's kind of a piano-based, singer-songwriter. And we asked her to describe her music in the show. You're going to be interested to hear that, but she's got a lot of different influences. And as we were talking a couple episodes back, I think, about the definition of Americana, and we kind of decided Americana is kind of everything. She has a lot of everything influences. So she kind of belongs right in the middle of that wheelhouse. And she's got some really interesting music. She's also married to Pickin Madera. And if you don't know the name, you would certainly know the face. He's been on Weeds, Kaleidoscope, Spider-Man Homecoming, along with others. He's also one of those guys who pops up as normally the bad guy or a suspect on like Law and Order or CSI or something. He's from the Dominican Republic. And so unfortunately, he probably gets pigeonholed into roles of like drug dealers and things like that. But he's a recognizable actor that you'll know. And he actually does a monologue in one of her songs that we'll talk about and play a little bit for you later in the show. So she's got a new album out. Fascinating. She's also a fellow West by God Virginian. So we talk about that a little bit as well. So That's fun, and we got a lot to talk about with her today.
Yeah, and then we'll do our normal Pickin the Grinnin, or are we?
Yep.
Since you already kind of started.
Well,
it?
no, that was just like that's a bonus pick for you. We're talking about the new Charlie Crockett album. That's a bonus pick. We're starting off a little 70s country style new stuff, and we'll close it down with a little bit of the same later, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. So the Pickin the Grinnin, okay, it's what we're listening to. It's making us grin. Could be new, could be old, but whatever it is, it sure will be good.
Before we kick all that off, though, I have a topic that I want to talk to you about, because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who is actually helping do some marketing and publicity and whatnot for an artist. And we started having this conversation. And so I wanted to throw this out, since we're talking to a woman today. And you, Frank, as I understand it, are a woman. So I wanted to ask this question. In the Americana space specifically, when you look out at the field of artists, do you feel like this is true? Because my friend who is working on marketing for a musician in the space said, in the Americana space, if you're a woman, you got to have a gimmick. You can't just be a good singer-songwriter because nobody listens to them. You got to have something. And I asked her to explain a little bit more, and she said, well, so for instance, Sierra Farrell, who is making it big now, she has this art thing around her. Like the cover of her album is amazing. She wears these, ridiculous sometimes costumes during her live show. She's very artistic and colorful and flashy, and that's kind of her thing. And then she also used this example, which may curl some toes, so buckle up. Margot Price has always been a little edgy from a female perspective in terms of kind of pushing the envelope on the topics she talks about and the things she says. If you follow her on social media, she gets very blue, if you will. Goes into the probably inappropriate for children conversation sometimes. And that edginess and sort of, strength, if you will, and stubbornness is her thing. She's got that thing. It's not necessarily a gimmick. That's the wrong way to term that. But if for a woman in the Americana space to be supremely successful, does she have to have something other than good singing, songwriting skills?
My initial reaction is to just say no.
Okay.
As before you brought up Sierra Farrell, that is exactly who I thought of, right? When you said that she's got to have a gimmick. And I use air quotes around gimmick because I'm quoting Jason, not that I believe Sierra Farrell has a gimmick. I mean, that's who she is. And thinking of Sierra Farrell, she kind of, to me, is like the country or Americana equivalent of Lady Gaga.
Okay.
Right? Kind of just over the top, but supremely talented. Okay. So no, I could name, right off the top of my head, a number of female Americana artists who have zero gimmick, or zero sort of like, like whatever, like an attraction. Right. And I'll be real honest with you. I started disliking, or maybe that's too strong of a word, but I started really not liking so much Amanda Shires when she kind of started to have this new look and gimmick. And I understand she wanted to kind of distance herself from her soon to be, or maybe now ex-husband, Jason Isbell. But, like everything about her just changed. She was this very seemed to be very down to earth, talented singer, songwriter, fiddle player. And her older stuff I really, really like. But then she started with these crazy hairdos and the big bug glass sunglasses and wearing 10-inch platform heels, and then her boobs hanging out all over the place. And listen, I had nothing against women that want to put their boobs out on display. I don't have any to put on display. So you go, girl. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. But I just felt like it was too much. And I turned the other way. I'm only speaking about me.
Sure.
So what did I do instead? Right. I turned to, and my Pickin the Grinnin for today was going to be one of these female artists that I have in mind. And I'll hold off on it until we get to that part. But I think about Margot Silker she is out, she's from Oregon, and she has no like gimmick or, look or
Right.
whatever unusual. She's a very gifted songwriter and great musician, singer. I've seen her a couple of times, and I love her songs. She just put out a new album a couple months ago. She comes to mind immediately. And we just talked too, not that long ago, about the Secret Sisters,
Yep.
the two sisters, Lydia and Laura. If, their blood harmonies and their talent is a gimmick, well then, okay, then that's what they have. But, they're exceptional.
Sure.
Like that's just who they are.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be something that they're not.
Right.
So I think the authenticity really is important.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so before we go any further, let me take a couple steps back and backtrack, backpedal a little bit on gimmick. That's the wrong word.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make it seem like Sierra Farrell's artistry or even eccentricity is a gimmick. It's her being genuinely her. I don't want to infer that or anybody to get mad at me because I'm saying that's a gimmick. That's not it. And I actually just thought of a couple of other things that, make a person as an artist, especially a woman, stand out in the Americana space that certainly are not gimmicks. And it would be a complete insult to use that word. Like, for instance, let's take Brandy Carlisle, for instance. She doesn't have a gimmick. She happens to be gay. And that is something that she does lead with. And I think that is an identifier outside of her music that makes her stand out. But I would certainly never in a million years call that a gimmick. It's not, That's not that she's not doing that to sell records. That's who she is.
Yeah.
And then as you were talking, some other examples, speak of another Brandy Clark, great singer-songwriter. I don't know of any gimmick that she has or any additional thing that puts her out there. So I appreciate your feedback on that question, because my pushback to my friend, when I was talking to them about this, I said the artists that feel like they have to have a gimmick probably need to focus more on learning how to write great songs. Because if you need to rely on a gimmick to be successful, then maybe it's not necessarily your talent that's going to carry you.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there who can make it in the world of singing and songwriting and be average to mediocre, but they have something that makes them stand out, like the way they dress or their marketing or whatever. And I'm not criticizing any of it. Right. If someone has great marketing and promotions, doesn't write songs real well, or even sings other people's songs, but they become successful as a performer, good on you. Go for it.
Right.
But I just thought that was an interesting question from someone who is looking through the eyes of, I have to market and promote this female artist, and I feel like she needs to have something other than her talent. And I almost feel like that's an attitude that holds women back, because if you can't go to market with your talent and talent alone, then I don't think you're doing yourself a good service. I think you're promoting the wrong things. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. As you're talking, I'm processing and trying to determine if I have something to add or, a response. But, and I like to think too, like in the Americana space, like we're used to music that doesn't have a whole lot of commercial success, maybe within our little groups and within the genre, in those circles. Sure, and success is measured differently by different people, right? So, but I think one of the reasons maybe I was drawn originally to this whole scene and the genre is because of the authenticity and the relatability, right? So to make a statement like that, about women needing like some sort of attraction, or I can't think of another word right now, but I'm trying not to say gimmick. I think I really don't see any truth in that. I really don't.
So let's. I almost wish I would have thought this through before I asked it, because I think we're getting hung up on the word gimmick. Let's say it's a brand, right?
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just using the word because that's
Oh, I know.
the start of the
I want the
conversation.
audience to can make the
Yeah,
connection too, though, that it's not gimmick is the wrong word. I apologize for using that word and inserting that into our brain here. But when you look at, like we were just talking about Charlie Crockett has now sculpted and defined a brand. He's a Texas cowboy. He wears a lot of turquoise and a white hat and sometimes white jeans. And, he's got this very 70s retro look. That is a brand. Like
yeah,
he has been branded well. When you
yeah,
look at him, you can almost hear his music without ever even
for
hearing
sure,
his music. You can
for
tell,
sure.
man, this is going to sound like Marty Robbins and maybe a little George Jones and like that. That's what that guy's going to sound like. Buck Owens. And that's exactly what he's going to sound like. Right.
And that's kind of, and now I think we're talking about another male, but Orville Peck,
Yep.
right? He is what he does a gimmick?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so,
No.
but whatever, I still listen to him. I don't care if
Mm-hmm.
he's wearing a mask with fringe, his voice is exceptional.
Yep.
I enjoy his music, so whatever else he's doing, I'm not concerned with that, right?
Right.
For me, it's about the music and whether the artist is male or female, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask,
Right.
yeah, it doesn't make a difference to me.
Very good. Well, it's an interesting conversation. I hope if you have any feedback on it, those of you out there in the listening audience, please jump over to the comment section on our website or send us a note on the social medias and let us know what you think. It's something interesting that I'm sure we'll revisit from time to time because I think gender roles and how men and women are treated differently is something we need to continue to talk about so that they aren't treated as differently, right?
For sure.
It's not going to get better unless you bring it up, talk about it, think about it, and make it everyone aware of it. So we'll continue to do that from time to time on this show. We'd love to hear your feedback on that. We are sipping on a bourbon and I am out. So we're going to take a quick break for a refill before we get to Jessie Lynn Madera today on the show, who we're excited to talk to. Do take a moment, if you will, and listen to more about some of the awesome sponsors that help make this show happen, including Musk Ox Flannels. You got to get some, folks. Go to gomuskox.com/Rambler and then shop, buy as many as you want. They got great colors. They got great sizes. They have all weather flannels or all season flannels. So they're a little thin for summertime, so you can still wear them and still look great. Then they have the heavier ones, obviously, for the wintertime that keep you all warm and fuzzy and soft. And you know me, I like being warm, fuzzy, and soft. So gomuskox.com/Rambler. Use the code Rambler and you're going to get a discount. $10 of every $100 purchase goes to supporting wildlife conservation, and you can't go wrong with that. gomuskox.com/Rambler. Use the code Rambler. Buttery soft, built like a tank. Hashtag buttery soft. This is Roots Music Rambler. Hey, Ramblers, I have experienced a revolution in sound in my house, and you can too. The revolution is driven by Sonos. The Sonos wireless music system lets you play any song in any room, control it all with the Sonos app on your phone or tablet. Sonos has all the connections to give you millions of songs and stations, including connecting to your iTunes, your Spotify, Pandora, and more. Get a wireless Sonos player and hear the sound quality difference. Then get one for all the rooms in your house where you listen, but might be out of reach of the stereo or Bluetooth speaker you normally use. So I've got one in my bedroom and bathroom for when I get ready in the morning. I've got one in the kitchen and living room for when I'm hanging out with friends. And then down here in the office den for when I'm working or setting up for another episode of the show. I happen to like the Sonos Move, which is one of the speaker models. I can put it out on my patio for cookouts. It's a weather-resistant design, has an 11-hour battery life, so I don't need to plug it in out there when I have people over for cookouts or tailgates or whatever. And I can play music on all or just a few of the speakers, so I never lose my jams going from room to room. Try the Move and hear the difference, then hook up all the rooms in your house for an excellent listening experience while you move around cleaning or dancing or whatever you do in the privacy of your own home. Listen to Roots Music Rambler on it, for God's sakes. It makes me sound even more handsome. Go to rootsmusic.link/Sonos, S-O-N-O-S, rootsmusic.link/Sonos. That'll take you right to the Sonos Move speaker page to purchase. I highly recommend it, and you'll love how much better your music and podcasts sound. Go to rootsmusic.link/Sonos. That's rootsmusic.link/Sonos.
To the songs on the radio.
That is the first single from Speed of Sound. It's called Austin, and it's from Jessie Lynn Madera, who joins us on Roots Music Rambler. Jessie Lynn, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. How you doing?
We're doing good. It's for those of you who are listening, I asked her before we started recording if she goes by Jessie or if she's Southern enough to go by Jessie Lynn. And so she's both. We'll call her Jessie, but she responds to Jessie Lynn too.
That's right. You can even alternate them if you want to.
There you go. Well, every now and then I kind of lapse into a Southern twang. You know, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. So if I lapse into my twang, I'm likely to just say Jessie Lynn. But, you know, that's how it goes.
You sound just like my cousins. That works
that's
great.
Good. That's good. We like to make you feel at home. So the Speed of Sound, this is, I think, your first full album. I think you had like an EP a couple of years ago, 2020, I believe. How was it to get in the studio and grind out that first kind of full-length thing?
It was, I recorded kind of, I guess, almost half of it up at Bear Creek in Washington with Ryan Hadlock at Bear Creek Studios. And that was kind of like going on a retreat.
Cool.
And he told me that sometimes, like, there's some musicians who will say, man, this is like rehab. and I've never been to rehab, but I can see that. And I can sort of see how, even just from an emotional perspective, it was sort of rehabilitative, and it was wonderful. And then I had kind of a finite amount of time there. And so I came back to LA and I started recording the rest of the album at Pliers Studios here, Pliers Studios, Santa Clarita. Oh. Yeah, so I started recording the second half of the album at Pliers Studios in Santa Clarita with Jim Scott and Dan Navarro. And that was like coming home. Mm-hmm. It was like being around family. And I don't know, what was the feeling? I guess, yeah, that's it. It just felt so instantly familiar and so supportive. And it really felt like I could take my time. It didn't feel rushed or pressured at all. And it was nice to work with people who were chasing the same thing I was chasing, which is an authenticity, and not necessarily, this sort of sterile note for note perfection, but the delivery of a message, something that was full of real feeling.
That's great. Well, you mentioned some names there. Your production team was nothing to shake a stick at. Dan Navarro, Jim Scott, Ryan Haddock. That right there is a wall of Grammys and some notable songs and performances. How does a relative newcomer score that kind of team to work with on your first real full-length album?
Well, Ryan Hadlock, that came from my manager. And I'd actually started recording some songs before that. And she said, wait, I don't think this is right. And I've really fought her on it. I'm not going to name the producer I was working with because he's so talented and wonderful. It has nothing to do with him. It just kind of was still sort of figuring out how these songs needed to sound and what they needed to be. And she goes, just give me a second. I want to put some more work into this and research it. And the next thing she knows, she goes, Ryan Hadlock is in. He produced the Lumineers. Brandy Carlisle recorded out there. Who else? Zach Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, yeah, that sounds about right. Let's go out there. And so that's how that happened. And then also Jill introduced me to Dan Navarro. She said, you really need to meet this guy. I think he's going to be the guy that can take you under his wing and give you some really great advice on how to go about all of this as an independent artist. And so it was really only supposed to be like a series of phone calls because Dan's always busy. I mean, I didn't even know if I was ever going to meet him in person. He's on the road most of the year. But the next thing I know, I'm going to meet him. He had a birthday concert out here at McCabe's. I'm wearing a McCabe's t-shirt right now. And night 1 was sold out. I got into night 2. And but right before I was about to go to that show, my manager goes, by the way, he co-wrote that song, We Belong, for Pat Benatar.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, what? I mean, I just about fell over. That was my first favorite song in my life on this planet. That I used to tell people when I was like 3 years old, they'd say, what do you want to be when you grow up, Jesse? And I'd say, Pat Benatar. Mm-hmm. And it was because of that song. So that was just a wild coincidence. And I was like, this is something. There's no way this isn't something. And so I went to go see him, and we met that night. And then the next thing I know, he's producing my album. It was just, it was like, maybe we should do a song together. Well, maybe you could play on the album. Well, maybe you should produce the album. And so I was actually his production debut.
Wow.
He has not produced. Yeah. And he wanted to work with his friend Jim Scott. And, that was just a no-brainer. Like, of course I want to work with Jim Scott. And they ended up being like father figures to me. And at the time I was sort of losing a father figure. He didn't die or anything like that, but my mom was going through a divorce from my stepfather.
Oh.
And kind of a messy one, and these guys, it just was nothing was by accident. You know what I mean? It was one of those situations where everything just was very much on purpose. And then my biological father came in and sang a song that To the Light is actually his song that he wrote. So we're duetting on that last, track of the album, number 11. And it was magical. I'll never forget the recording of this.
That's a whole lot of stars aligning and, just all the pieces falling right into place where they're supposed to be. And Dan Navarro, very well known in the Americana space for his work with Eric Lowen and Navarro. And the single that you did with him is called Last Call.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we wrote a song together, and I didn't know if he was going to say yes to that. 'Cause again, he's always gone. But what ended up happening is he sent me a guitar progression that he recorded on like voice memos, on his iPhone. And the lyrics just came to me. And, we met up once after that. When he was coming through LA on tour, then we went into the studio and recorded it. It was just so easy to write. There was no, there was no hammering. I don't know if y'all write songs or, sometimes they come easy and sometimes they don't, sometimes it takes a year or two to get the right words and the right lick. But something magical happened with Dan, and I got to record with the guy who wrote my favorite song. How lucky.
That's amazing.
That is something.
Life's crazy.
That is very cool. Well, just to appease everyone's curiosity, the only songs I ever write, they all rhyme with Nantucket. So not worth sharing.
Hey, did you? So, fun fact. While we're sharing, I've tried writing songs, and what you said, like sometimes it's not easy. Well, it wasn't. It probably wasn't ever all that easy for me. So I don't really try anymore. But I did write one probably like 20 years ago, and it's called Louisville.
Oh, I bet it's beautiful.
Well, we're going to have to pull that one out and
We'll have to, yeah, like it. No one ever has ever sung it. There's no music or anything, but yeah, just had to throw that in there.
okay. All right. Well, we'll revisit that on this show, I'm sure.
Oh,
Plenty.
yeah.
Anyway, well, since we're talking about the song with Dan Navarro, why don't we take a quick break and listen to it? We're going to let people hear it. We'll step out for a quick break, listen to Last Call from Jesse Lynn Madera featuring Dan Navarro. Don't go away. More in a moment. This is Roots Music Rambler.
Last call of the evening, first call of the morning. Once upon a lion, once upon a hummingbird, once upon the waves and a full moon at the shore. Do you build the walls? Would you guess them fall? Do your graves recall the shape of me at all? Your track and shape. Man, that this land won't get cold. I'm gonna love you anyway, anyway. If that's all we've got, 10 miles down. 10 miles down, 10 miles down, 10 miles down.
That was 10 Miles Down from Jesse Lynn Madera. It's another single off her new album, Speed of Sound. We'll have links to the show notes, or in the show notes, to all that good stuff, so you can go find it very quickly and very easily. So we're talking about this all-star production team and the first couple tracks off the new album, but let's pull back for a bit now, Jesse, and talk a little bit more about your music overall. Americana is such a broad label. We've been having this kind of ongoing discussion on the show about what fits into Americana, and we've decided everything fits into Americana. But for someone who doesn't necessarily know your music, how do you describe the songs you write and perform?
The other day, I described it as like Fiona Apple and Tori Amos meet Brandy Carlisle.
Okay. That's interesting.
Maybe kind of something like that.
Yeah.
Those are some powerhouses.
Yeah.
Say that again. Sorry.
Those are some powerhouses.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of my heroes. I listen to a lot of, mostly older music, but I consider those three to be like a little bit more current, but that's kind of what I would say. I was also really influenced by like old Bonnie Raitt. You remember the Sweet Forgiveness album? And Linda Ronstadt, like 70s Linda Ronstadt.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where I come from. But I'm a pianist, and so it's hard not to. There's a Kate Bushiness that pops up, and I don't know, I also love meatloaf. Like I love the food Meatloaf, and I love I love the artist. Rest in peace.
Oh, that's great.
You're like, where is she going with this?
No. I was with you. I was with you the whole time, and then you said the food Meatloaf, and I'm like, okay.
This is the musical version of a Southern cookout where everybody brings a side and there's like everything.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that's kind of how I feel. I listen to everything. I mean, I've even been influenced by like Tejano music. So I guess that's why I must be Americana. Right?
Truly. And I mean, talk about a wide range and a kind of an eclectic mix. Like Americana, like you, can't be specified, right? Like, well, it's not mostly country, and that's kind of how your music sounds, right? Like you're not pop, but you kind of are. You're not country, but you kind of are. So with all those influences that you mentioned, do you feel that sometimes, that mixture, does it hold you back with audiences? Do you need a label to find an audience, or do you see it as a strength?
I don't think it holds me back with audiences, but I do think that it could hurt me. I don't know. I mean, maybe on the business side of it, but as I am the business side of it,
Sure.
since I'm an indie artist, it's like I am the label, and the label approves, you know? I think people want to hear something honest.
Yeah.
And there's an audience for honest music.
Definitely.
So I'm hoping that's my selling point. And there was some discussion. I mean, there are songs on there like Waving and the title track, Speed of Sound, and what else? I don't know. I mean, just some of the more dreamy songs. It was like, well, should we put those songs on there? I don't know. That was a discussion in the studio, and I said, yeah, because I want to show up as the full, like, this is who I am and this is what I do. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I could have made a dreamy album and I could have made an Americana album. But
Well, there's risks and
You could have had eras.
Yeah, there's risks in that too, though, because if you, especially for a new artist or a new artist to some people, if you come out with this dreamy album and you get this nice audience developed, and then you come out with something very different, now you're polarizing folks and potentially losing them. I'm curious. Let's dig into a little bit more about the business side of things, because I'm curious: is that variety of sounds, does it make it more challenging to get people in the business to work with you? And I don't necessarily mean record labels, because record labels, they love someone with a very defined thing because it's easier to co-brand and market and sell to radio stations. But does that broad definition, does that hurt you with producers or other musicians or booking gigs? Like, is there a challenge there?
No. I think everybody gets excited about it. Like, I've had people just like musicians and producers, I've had them just be excited to work on something that doesn't sound like a lot of other things that they've worked on. So it gives them a chance to really demonstrate what they can do and think about things differently and flex their muscles. I mean, Jim was such a great person to have, especially for that reason, because he worked on Robbie Robertson. So if you listen to my song Waving and you hear the percussion on Waving, he had a hand in that. He took me into the room and he goes, let's listen to this song. And it was Somewhere Down the Crazy River.
Oh, I love that one.
So if you listen to Somewhere Down the Crazy River and listen to Waving, you'll definitely hear the influence on that. And then I brought in the Zombies, Time of the Season sort of,
Nice.
I said, we got to do that.
Nice.
But yeah, I like to work with people who are down to experiment,
Yeah. And then, so we mentioned that you're based in LA. Okay. So what is it like? Do you have any sense of the differences, or if there's any difficulty in how you have to go about marketing, because you are somewhat in that Americana space? Like, is it harder or easier for someone like you coming out of LA rather than trying to go through Nashville, let's say?
Well, I was in Nashville for a while, and actually my PR team is still based in Nashville. Honestly, I don't like my song Ola Papi. I don't know if you heard that one. That was sort of a standalone single. I mean, what a weird little song, right? Speaking of Tejano music, well, right? It's like a Tejano polka. And I think that they I don't think they knew. And they're really great. But I think there was a little bit of what the heck is going on? And they're like, I can't imagine. You can't really get much better than the people I'm working with. They're just amazing. But I think it would be a challenge. Like, I can't imagine anybody who would have known what to do with that song. And it didn't really go very far, I don't think. I'm not sure how much radio play it got, Because I don't know like how many Tejano polka stations there are, right?
I'm guessing
Probably
we can
more
count them
in
on one
than
hand.
Nashville. I would just take a guess. And I'm sure maybe we have one here in Chicago. We have plenty of Spanish language.
Oh
radio
yeah,
stations.
okay. Well, maybe I should. Maybe there will be a resurrection of Ola Poppy.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
So you're out there touring a bit now. What's the short and maybe long-term plan for getting this new album out there?
Well, I'm touring. I've got a bunch of dates in May, and then taking like a little, a couple weeks off just to ease I have two kids, two boys, and so I'm going to be easing them into summer vacation. But yeah, there will be more dates this summer. I've got a bunch of dates that I'm going to be announcing for the fall. It looks like I'm going to be touring with somebody. I'm not going to say who yet, but I'm excited about that. Yeah, just a bunch of getting out there and taking the music with me, and a sunny attitude.
Very nice. Well, how old are your boys?
12 and 6, soon to be 7 and 13.
Okay. You got half of a road crew there. So take that. That's the summer
That's
vacation.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. My 12-year-old has been working out. He's constantly flexing in front of the mirror. So I should put those muscles.
You need to say, I'm glad you're showing me your muscles because you need to lift this amp and
you know what? He's going to kill me. I hope he never hears this interview. But I got to tell you something funny. So he's taking strength and conditioning at school instead of gym. And I guess the coach wasn't watching him very well because my son was only working out one arm. He was only working out his right arm. And I didn't realize it at first. It reminded me of like Theo from the Cosby Show. It was something he would do, He was always showing off his right arm, but like that's kind of, he's right-handed. So like I just didn't think anything of it. And then I can't remember how we noticed, but we're like, oh my God. His left arm was still skinny and his right arm was like like Popeye.
Nice.
So he was going to help me carry something heavy, and I was like, "Use your right arm." Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Wow, that's a good one. Well, I'm sure it's a nice lesson learned for him. At some point, he'll figure that out. But we do need to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to drill more into the roots of Jessie Lynn Madera, or how my mama says, "How'd you get to be like that?" Let's first though hear a little bit of the song that you were talking about, "Waving," from the new album that is out there now, and we'll have links to it in the show notes. This is "Waving" from Jessie Lynn Madera, and this is Roots Music Rambler.
Dry up. That would be a shame. I had this tune stuck in my head. Wondered if you had the same. And I called to have a go.
5 años, mi padre me llevó a un partido de pelota, las Águilas contra el Licey, donde una señora sentada 5 butacas a mi izquierda, cuando la mataron con una bala perdida en la cabeza. Claro, no pararon el partido, se llevaron el cuerpo, limpiaron la sangre. ¿Y cómo es que se dice Playboy?
Too long since I saw God. Just ask about me. Do you wanna fool around again?
That's a fun tune from Jessie Lynn Madera. We were talking about it earlier. It's a single called Hola Papi. You can find links to the single on Spotify in our show notes. Jessie Lynn joins us today on Roots Music Rambler. So in case people haven't put two and two together, Jessie, you are the wife of Pickin Madera, who provides the voiceover in the song. So if you go listen to that, that's going to be his voice there. And you may not recognize, for those of you out there listening, you may not recognize his name, but you'd have to be living under a rock to not know his face. He is a very recognizable character actor who has appeared in Spider-Man, The Homecoming, Weeds, Queen of the South, Luck. For you Star Wars nerds out there, I think he was in an episode of The Mandalorian. Jessie Lynn, tell us about that song a little bit and bringing your husband into the mix there.
Let's see. That's a song that I started writing because I really wanted to get it placed. Wanted to get it placed on television. That's why it's so specific.
Okay.
And I was kind of inspired by the Weeds theme song.
Yes. Tiny houses.
Yeah, tiny houses. And then also, I got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a brand new key.
Yes, love that song.
Yeah, those were kind of what drove the originals when I was just writing it on piano. It was just it's just such a bizarre little tune. And I thought, wouldn't it be creepy if we had him do a monologue in Spanish? And I don't know if either one of y'all speak Spanish. Do you know what he's talking about?
She does.
Yeah.
She's a Spanish teacher.
Sí, soy profesora de español.
Oh, sí.
Okay, here's the thing. I have not listened to it.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Well, so he's doing a monologue about the first time that he ever saw death. And it's a true story. He was at a baseball game. I don't know how dark we're allowed to get on this show.
Dark as you need to go.
You can always
go crazy.
You can always cut this out.
No, we're not cutting anything out. Go for it.
No.
Well, he was at a baseball game with his dad in the Dominican Republic. That's where Hemke's from. And he was about 8 years old. And there was a woman 2 rows down, I guess, she took a stray bullet during the game.
Oy.
And she passed away, but they didn't stop the game.
Wow.
And so
I mean, I know they take baseball seriously in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
But
that's next level, right? I mean, yeah. So I thought that it would add sort of an extra layer of just insanity.
Macabre.
Yeah. If there's this happy beat, and he's talking about the first time that he ever saw death as a little boy.
That's amazing.
And then at the end of that monologue, he goes, "Como se dice?" Like, how do you say play ball?
Wow. Okay, the song has taken on a whole new meaning for me now. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it again.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, you watch the video. Yeah. The video is really funny.
That's crazy. My goodness.
He's in the video. I'm a stalker.
Well, I mean, you could pick worse for sure, I would think.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you. Yeah. He gets tied to the chair and then he escapes. It's a very cute video.
Wow.
Yeah. And that is my fun fact. When you do watch it, that's my wedding dress that I'm wearing in the video. We never actually had a wedding. We ended up getting married at the court because I was pregnant.
So you commemorated the wedding by stalking him in a video. That's nice.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was great.
Well, that's a very, very creative life.
Seriously, it sounds like there's a whole lot of creativity in that household.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of fun. My best friend is a film director and screenwriter, and we're always just doing something. There's always things getting filmed at the house, and it's a fun life out here.
Sounds like it. And then your husband's background and his heritage. So it has had somewhat of an influence on your songwriting and your video making. What other kind of impact has like his culture, his heritage, and then all of this creativity? Like how else has it impacted your work and your songwriting?
Well, I guess my songwriting really springs from what grounds me. Like if I'm in a state of upheaval, I can't really write. I have to be grounded. I have to feel a home in order to write. And he's home. I mean, it's really the first time in my life since I was about 2 or 3 years old that I have like a stable home. And I love being here. I love being with him. And so I guess in that way, and my when I say that I haven't felt at home since I was about 2 or 3 years old, that's because when I was about 2 or 3, I was living in West Virginia, and we kind of jokingly called it a commune. I was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, but I had a bunch of family members that all lived like right there. I mean, you could just walk across the alley and be at Aunt Pat's, and go back over and be at Aunt Jerry's, and grandma. I had both grandmas there. And it was a very short period of my life, but like during when it would get warm, everybody would meet at the picnic table and like shuck corn and string beans, and that was home. And it's wild, like that's what I had then. That's kind of what he had in the DR. So there's, even though like the food is different, there's like this. It's a vibe.
Yeah.
It's a vibe, and our value systems are in line,
And what you've described sounds the way I grew up, right? In the middle of Chicago in an Italian neighborhood. So I had both my grandmothers, my aunt and uncle were downstairs, so yeah, same way.
Yeah.
Community's everything.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is. It really
Well,
is.
and you may not have known this. I don't know why you would have, but I am also a West Virginian. I was actually born in Logan, not too far from Parkersburg, so down in the mountains.
Oh my gosh!
And it's what you were describing. The word that comes to my mind when you tell those stories is, and I think a lot of people know this, but I don't think you really understand it unless you've lived it. Is families in the mountains especially are very clan-like. It's, there's the Hatfield McCoy clan, right? They talk about those types of things. Well, that term really, in essence, even today, you can go find yourself a holler up there in Eastern Kentucky now, and you go up there in Eastern Kentucky, and that holler is Thompson Holler, and that's because Grandma and Grandpa Thompson live up in the top, and then their 3 children live the next 3 houses down, and then their 6 children live the next 6 houses down, and that whole holler is the Thompson Holler, right? And family is very much, you're one unit. And I would imagine that's probably what your husband experienced as a child in the Dominican Republic. That's akin to what Francesca experienced even in Chicago, in a large city. It's a very familial community thing. I wonder, even though I think you weren't in West Virginia very long, but I wonder if those memories and recollections and whatnot feed your creativity at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they do. I think that they are very much at the bottom of who I am. Right when we left Parkersburg, things in my family life got really, really wacky and disjointed. And so I think, like I was saying, my creativity has to come from stability. So in that way, yeah, it really does influence my creativity, and it influences the types of people that I want to work with. Like I got to be around people who are huggers, or just people who are generous with who they are and their spirits.
Very nice. Now, you actually have a roundabout path to music, because as I understand it, from an educational standpoint, coming up and growing up, you were an actor. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I studied acting for a while. I thought I've been doing music my whole life, but I thought that I couldn't study formally because I never learned how to write or read music. I was a pretty, insecure and shy kid. And I was a little freaked out by the idea of like being put on the spot in that way. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't like the first, I wasn't raising my hand in class or anything like that. So theater was great for me in that way. It got me used to the feeling of being looked at and surviving it. You know, I mean, they would do exercises where it's like, okay, go out of the room and walk in and just stand there, and the whole class would just be looking at you for like 5 minutes, and you can't do anything, you don't say anything, you just have to stand there and be looked at and just breathe. And so that was really good for me. I think, you know, for whatever reason, I just needed to do that. And I've always loved to perform. It's always been easier for me actually to do something on stage, to sing or play, than it is to talk, to just speak. But yeah, so I always did music. I was just in the closet about it. I mean, I would come home from school and that's what I would do. But I might not share it, right, with friends or anything like that. Not until I was about 15 or 16.
Is that when music became your focus at about that age?
It was always my private focus. Like, it was always the thing that I was doing. So like in class, I'd be writing poetry. I was always writing. Even when I was about 6, I'd go home and I'd be making up songs. My mom was a transcriptionist. And so she would come home with those, like, you know, in the 80s, I'm dating myself, but she would come home with those transcription, you know, tape machines, and I'd take it. I put a fresh tape in there, and I would just sit there in my room and make up songs. So I think it's always what I really wanted to do. And theater was it was just a really important part of my music education.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely does.
For sure.
So I'm curious, at what point in that evolution did you think, I can do this? I can write music, I can record music, I can perform music, I can do this?
I really dove into it after I graduated, because I went to NYU for theater. And when I graduated, I kind of just knew immediately that I wanted something. Music was going to be better for me because it's something that I can have a little bit more control over. I'm not waiting to be chosen. I can just do it. And it's pretty fun to play in the living room. You can't really do a monologue by yourself. You know, that's
you
not that
can,
fun.
but that's diagnosable.
That's what yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then if it becomes a dialogue, look out.
Right.
Then you got meds. That's what that.
Yeah, exactly. Then you better hope nobody's watching.
Good. Well, we love the new album. It's called Speed of Sound. We'll make sure there are links to that in the show notes. Tell folks where they can find you online and maybe figure out where they can see you live.
Yes. So my website is Jessie. So JESSELYNN Madera.com. And the album is available online. You can even order a hard copy on Amazon, or there are a couple places selling hard copies. It's Googleable. And what else? Oh, and my shows, I wrote them down here. I'm on May 4th, I'm going to be in New York at the Bitter End, which is one of my favorite places to play. And then on the 5th, I'm going to Annapolis. I'll be at Ram's Head on stage, and I'm doing a show with Dan Navarro. And then I'll be with Dan Navarro again in Vienna, Virginia, and on the 7th. And then Alice Peacock. Do y'all know Alice Peacock? Oh. She's a wonderful singer-songwriter. So Dan Navarro, Alice Peacock, and I are doing a couple shows. On May 10th, we're going to be in Columbus, Ohio at Natalie's Grandview. And then the next night, we'll be at the Indianapolis Arts Center doing Concerts for a Cause.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it's going to be a fun month. I'm excited about it.
That's not too far away from me. I might have to jump in the car and drive up for that.
I was going to say, didn't want to put any pressure on you or anything.
Oh, everybody does. It's fine. Tomorrow night. I'm actually going to go tomorrow night to see someone we interviewed last week. So, it's just.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. I love doing it. Well, let's go out with the title track of your latest album. This is The Speed of Sound from Jessie Lynn Madera. Jessie Lynn, stay tuned, everybody. This is Roots Music Rambler.
Joey wants to live in a place no one can find him. I tell him I am from a planet far, far away. He sends drawings that he did of a house with just one light on, middle of some property off the Montana line.
Man, that was fun. Jessie Lynn Madera, great album, good music. Go check that out. Lots of fun and obviously a fun conversation to have with her. The album is called Speed of Sound. All the links are in the show notes. It is time once again for our Pickin the Grinnin segment. This is where Francesca and I talk about the artists we're listening to this week or this month or whatever. It might be new artists, might be new music, might be old, might be something you haven't heard in a while, but it's recommendations we have for you to go listen to. And I promised we would close out the show with something. So unfortunately, Frank, I'm going to have to ask you to go first. Who's your Pickin the Grinnin this week?
Well, I'm picking and grinning, the grinning, picking. And I referenced this in the beginning of the show, like when we had our discussion about Americana female artists, right?
Yep.
I said one of them was going to be my Pickin the Grinnin, and that is Waxahachie. She is... I first started listening to her, like, I don't even know how many years ago, because one of her songs came up on like Pandora, right? And I was like, oh, I like this, and I didn't know that Waxahachie was one person. I thought it was a whole band. And then come to find out that it's one person, Katie. So, when I found out not too long ago that she had a new album coming out, I was super excited because I liked everything else that I'd heard from her. And then her new album just came out we're recording this now. It's been just over a month, I think, since her latest album, Tiger's Blood. I think that's what it's called. And it's another one that I listened to on the drive down to New Orleans. So it was perfect. And yeah, I really love it. Love that album. It's one of my favorites from 2024.
Fantastic. Alabama girl, I believe. Or as they say it down there, Olabumba. And so Waxahachie's a good recommendation. So mine, as I promised, we started off the show with a little Pickin the Grinnin with Charlie Crockett's new album, $10 Cowboy. I want to see Charlie Crockett and this person, my Pickin the Grinnin this week. I want to see her open up for him or him open up for her. I don't care what order they go in. Because as we mentioned earlier, so from a branding perspective, these two are dialed in and they match. And that is Kimmy Bitter. I have her album in front of me here, Old School, Kimmy Bitter. And let me tell you something. You put this album on and you close your eyes and you're going to think Patsy Cline, Loretta Lynn. I mean, this is 60s country and it is damn good. She's from San Diego. Came out of nowhere with this album, popped at number 1 on the Americana charts.
How does that happen?
And I think she may have had a couple thousand subscribers on Spotify. Like she just kind of came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden this album popped and somebody grabbed it and ran with it and it became number 1. I think it debuted at number 1. And it's worth the investment. I mean, this thing is fantastic. The first cut is called Old School and it's almost an anthem for people who like 60s country. I mean, It just talks about I'm old school and this is what we like. And I agreed with every bit of it. I mean, there's so many great cuts on this thing. It's if you look at her, like she wears the Goldie Hawn dresses from whatever that show, Laugh In, right? The little go-go boots and the go-go dresses.
I'm looking at that picture. It's a little Dusty Springfield-y.
Yeah. Very, very much. And I'm telling you, man, just from the branding and the marketing of it all, but you look just like what I said earlier with Charlie Crockett, you look at this album, you look at her and you can hear the music before you ever hear it. Like, you know exactly what it's going to sound like. And damn it, that's what it sounds like. And I think both Charlie Crockett and Kimmy Bitter are going to be huge over the next few years because they're tapping into that sort of retro country sound that a lot of people miss.
Yeah.
The sound of Nashville before it became, orchestrated and pop music, right? But back when Waylon and Willie and the boys, did their thing and outlaw country became a thing, this is what country music sounded like before that. And a lot of people miss that. I think that's why Charlie Crockett's making it big. I think that's why Kimmy Bitter is going to be big too.
And you, Old School, that was one of your 60-second reviews not too long ago, right?
It was.
Yes,
And I said essentially the same thing. I think it's I Can't Unlove You is the second cut on the first side of the album after Old School. Close your eyes. 2 words in, Patsy Cline. You're going to go, oh my God, it's Patsy Cline. I mean, it's amazing.
Since
it's a great album.
Posted that review, I've been meaning to listen and, life, right? So I'm going to have to move it up the list now.
Yeah. It's Kimmy Bitter. She's the only thing I don't like about the album. I pointed this out in the 60-second review, and it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. She pronounces it Appalachia, which makes me want to commit murder.
Yeah,
because it's Appalachia. It's always been Appalachia. It will always be Appalachia. Anybody who says it otherwise, I don't care where you are, you're wrong. I don't care how your grandparents pronounced it. They're wrong too. It's Appalachia. And if you don't think I'm qualified to tell you, look up Pikeville, Kentucky on a map. That's where I'm from. It's Appalachia. God damn it.
Damn it. So, I hope a few of my students hear this part, at least of this episode.
Especially the goddamn it part.
Well, yeah, because that's perfect. That's cool. But no, talking about it in class, I've said Appalachia. And a few of them have been like, you mean Appalachia?
No.
And I'm like, no, it's Appalachia. No. So whatever. I'm
Not
right.
At all. Yes. Appalachia. Trust me. It's Appalachia. If anybody says anything different, they're damn wrong. And I know a lot of people who will kill them for a 6-pack over it. So there you go. That's how you know I'm right. So
anyway,
that's all the time we have this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Roots Music Rambler is a production of Falls and Partners, copyright 2024. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com and make sure you mash that subscribe or follow button so you remember to join us for the next Hoe-Down and Throwdown. She's Frank.
And he is Falls.
And whatever you do, kids, ramble on.